Okay, Basma, thank you so much for being a part of our Community of Practice channel here on YouTube. On behalf of SETSI, we thank you so much for your leadership for today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored.
Awesome. So as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Thank you so much. Again, this is a great pleasure for me to be here. My name is Basma Majerbi. I'm an associate professor of finance at Gustavson School of Business at University of Victoria. I would like to also take a moment to honor the communities of the Lukwangan speaking people, the original caretakers of the land our university stands on today. So obviously, as a professor, I've been, I had my journey has been, has evolved, like just like the financial sector has been evolving. So I've been trained traditionally in asset pricing, impact, like in investment more generally, risk management, and so on. And as I moved to University of Victoria, and my thinking has evolved over time. And I found myself more and more interested in sustainable finance and impact investing and so on. So that's where I'm shifting in terms of both my teaching and my research. And it also really aligns very well with what we stand for as a university and as a school of business, with sustainability being at the heart, one of the pillars of everything we do. So, so in addition to my teaching and research and other academic activities, I recently founded, led a new initiative at University of Victoria, relatively new, the Impact Investing Hub. So this is a research and education center at the intersection of climate action and impact investing. And really, like it stems from a need it's the kind of a culmination of a lot of conversations, initiatives, work that we've done with the community here that revealed a need for more education and research and knowledge around impact investing. And so this is like a hub. We call it a hub because it's kind of like a platform where we have students, professors, members of communities can come together to learn and collaborate. And so the mission is really like to build capacity in the space. I think there's a great need for talent in sustainable finance and impact investing more generally. We don't have a lot of university programs that actually offer such education. It is changing, but it's still slow. And so through the hub, we offer some experiential learning opportunities to students, as well as members of the community developing some programs for creating awareness and build capacity and skills. And then, work with some community members and industries in collaborative research that is more like action oriented. And then also try, one of the other gaps that, has been revealed over time is that lack of, data and resources. So we're trying slowly to create, understand the landscape, the ecosystem, starting with British Columbia, and then try to share some of that information with our stakeholders. And within the scope of work, there are three kind of like focus areas that, in my opinion, encompass a lot of the big challenges that we're faced with locally and globally. And these are like climate and nature. How do we shift capital so that it aligns more with climate goals and avoid nature loss that is accelerating. Transition finance, which is a big topic, obviously, we know where we want to go, but the transition period is really difficult for a lot of organizations, particularly at the small level. And then obviously something that is really close to my heart related to inclusive finance, like how do we make our financial system more inclusive? There are many types of organizations and founders and demographics that do not have equal access to capital. So, going forward as we build programs and research agendas and so on, these are the areas of focus.
Very good, very good. And how would you articulate your personal mission and vision? And I like to combine also like what inspires you. I think those two are relative. Yes.
Yeah, I think in the context of my current work, really what inspires me is the incredible passion. Being in a university, you see the incredible passion and dedication in students. The young generation is really inspiring in terms of their genuine desire to build a better society and a more sustainable planet, right? Like, naturally, they're really passionate about the environment, about the planet, and they have a lot of enthusiasm, which is contagious when you live in a university and have all these amazing students who are committed to learning, actively looking for ways to make a real impact, right? So this energy is really motivating, and I'm blessed to be in a university context for sure. Like that gives me a lot of hope for the future. Likewise, also in university, I see a lot of my colleagues, whether in the business school or at University of Victoria and others, like more and more focused and tirelessly working to make a difference in their communities through their work, through their research, community engagement. So that's also really inspiring. And more importantly, related to social impact, impact investing, right? Social finance. It's really encouraging to see how many local innovation is taking place to address some of the most pressing challenges. You see a lot of these kind of founders and entrepreneurs really motivated to tackle some big issues, right? And taking the risk, some of them leave their jobs, dedicate all their time to really solve these pressing issues. And so that motivates me to also what can I do on my part to create more awareness around, how do we mobilize more finance, more capital to support these great innovation, because often many of them can struggle, to find capital, especially that a lot of investors still, only think about, it's legitimate to think about financial returns, but may not necessarily understand the impact thesis and the longer term potential of some of these great innovations. With respect to the hub, I have to say, there are some challenges. Maybe we can talk later, but I'm
Yeah,
really
that's actually the next question.
yeah,
So,
and
like, what challenges or
yeah.
barriers have you faced? So go ahead. Go ahead.
But yeah, no, actually, obviously, like anything, there are some challenges and barriers. But what I want to mention also in terms of, let's just jump into challenges, and then maybe we can come back to other things. I think so. It's kind of like in my work that I'm kind of like, I have two things. Like there's like my personal academic kind of challenges, but also with this initiative of creating the Impact Investing Hub, which is more like, it's based at the university, but it has more like things that do not fall necessarily under my duties as a professor, right? So one of the biggest challenges I face on a personal level is there's a bit of a struggle to balance traditional academic performance and metrics, how many publications you have, what's your teaching record, evaluations, and all that, which are, important to maintain at a certain standard. And then what I feel I'm more passionate about, the impact-focused work that I'm really passionate about. And I have to admit that even though I think the university, the academic thinking is shifting towards encouraging academics to be more focused on impact, we are still largely measured by metrics, again, as I mentioned, like number of publications, which journals, and other traditional metrics, which do not necessarily always capture the value of some of the, for example, the community-based work, which can be like very time-consuming, but also pay off in it takes a much longer term to really see impact as ideas and practices shift slowly, right? Like it's not something you can see immediately. You can see the impact. So I often find myself juggling between the priorities and and trying to meet conventional expectation while also dedicating time to some initiative that might not fit necessarily in those boxes, right? And for the Impact Investing Hub, I think one of the main challenges right now, because it's a new initiative, is some of we do have limited resources. The work is ambitious, and I'm really grateful for the incredible support, which is another source of inspiration that I received from community leaders for creating this initiative. This has been a collective effort. I've been fortunate to have champions in our advisory board, like really people with amazing leadership and accomplishments in multiple domains, who are lending their time and advice to this initiative. But at the same time, we're often, working with very tight financial constraints, which makes it a bit challenging to expand some of the initiatives. And but with every challenges, there are also opportunities, right? So, for example, the way I've been overcoming some of these challenges, often leveraging small grants, working with students, as opposed to, for example, hiring permanent staff that require more resources. So it's challenging, but it's also very rewarding. It allows me to, at the same time, contribute to training students and give them hands-on experience in social finance and impact investing. In many ways, it's kind of like I see it as a win-win situation. And we can advance our work, though slowly, but at the same time, contribute to creating talent in the space. So many of the students who worked with me through the initiative in the hub ended up working in the social impact sector and social finance, impact investing. And I'm very always, it's a pleasure to see that, right? That I may have contributed a little bit to kind of like inspiring them to pursue a career in that domain. Yeah.
Wonderful. Awesome. That's so powerful. And what are you currently working on? Maybe say some of the current or anything that you're soon going to be working on. Yeah.
Yeah, so something that I'm working on right now, which I'm also very excited about, is I'm part of a really large initiative at the University of Victoria, which aligns perfectly well with the goal of and the mission of the hub that I mentioned. And it's actually one that is shaping my priority in terms of research over the next few years, is around supporting and accelerating community energy transitions. through an initiative by the same name, actually, at University of Victoria. It's called Accelerating Community Energy Transformation. It's a fantastic initiative. It is a multidisciplinary, multi-partner initiative. We're bringing together faculty members, students, and from multiple universities. It's led by our Institute for Integrated Energy Systems, and I'm really honored to be part of this work. And really what we're trying to achieve is really this kind of like community co-created, co-developed research agenda to support communities' transformation. And really like at the heart of this is the energy transition. So a lot of communities in Canada, like there are hundreds of communities that are still dependent on diesel. It has a lot of like obviously in climate impact, of course, but also affects the health and resilience of the community, their economic development, their opportunities for a healthier and more cleaner future are all intertwined, right, with the energy that is being used in the community. So through this work, we are committed to working very closely with communities to understand the challenges, the local priorities, and really like, like the whole research is either inspired by community needs or co-created with community partners. And the team includes, people working on engineering solutions, people working on the social, socioeconomic issues related to energy transition, indigenous energy sovereignty, all these kind of things. And on my side, I'm working on how do we also, innovate and mobilize capital to support the energy transition, right? So working on financial mechanism and creative business models and things like that. So impact investing is really like a natural fit here. How do we mobilize more impact investment capital to support community energy, community-led energy projects and all other related aspect of the energy transformation. So this is something that is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to learning from, on the ground from these challenges, but also collaborating with so many amazing partners from practice and industry who are leading some of this work, and then basically contributing to this also from our perspective at the university. So sorry. Yeah, so this is a really an exciting project that is one of the priorities for my research time. And of course, one of the other key priorities for me now that we have established the Impact Investing Hub, we have developed some programs, both supporting students, supporting some, small and medium-sized enterprises and others through different initiatives. My goal is to work on kind of securing the necessary resources to fully establish the Impact Investing Hub as a go-to place in our region for, to become like a trusted resource to access knowledge, data, some of the latest research insights to learn more about, what can be done, right? Like at every level in terms of mobilizing finance for positive impact.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And so how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
This is a really big question. Yeah, I'm definitely very optimistic about the future of social impact in Canada. I see a lot of inspiring initiatives, a lot of like also the policy environment is quite positive right now and conductive, with the launch of the social finance fund and other big initiative. But at the same time, to be really honest, I think we need to approach it with our eyes really wide open. There's a lot of positive momentum, as I mentioned. More people, more organization, governments, recognizing the need to invest in solutions to address social and environmental challenges. So that's very encouraging to see. And definitely there's a growing interest and commitment to making finance, towards social finance. However, I do have, some concerns, and some of them are really like serious, and I think it's shared by many people. One big issue, of course, is the risk of greenwashing, where organizations appear to be committed to social impact, sustainability on the surface, but in reality, they are making very superficial changes and using marketing tactics to ride the wave, right? Like everybody now is talking about impact, aligning with the SDGs, doing this and that, caring about equity, diversity, and inclusion, and doing all this stuff. So it's really important for us to be mindful that greenwashing exists in all sorts of forms. We need to set really high standard for what constitutes genuine impact and hold organization accountable for those standards. Otherwise, we risk undermining the credibility of the entire movement, right? And so that's, for me, that's something that is really important. And as an educator, I try to also like instill this into my students as well as in my other interactions. The other concern is that which is really serious concern for me, is that social impact initiative, the benefits of these kind of like social impact initiative may not be shared equally. So there's a danger that traditional players who have all the networks, all the established track record, will receive most of the capital channeled into impact investing, for example. And we see this happen. You have the not just in Canada, but you have some really like big, and like the BlackRock of the world are now talking about impact investing and creating funds and kind of like getting a lot of capital to invest, right? And so in a way that may be good that we're shifting the thinking, but at the same time it may be also if everything is like, because they have the network and the expertise, of course, but then also the track record, which a lot of investors are focused on. Smaller community-based organizations will be left behind and will not access some of these resources. And so we see a lot of like emerging impact funds that really struggle to get capital from foundations or other organizations that legitimately have concerns. But so I'm worried about kind of like this could exacerbate some existing inequalities, like who gets to benefit from this social impact capital that is kind of growing, and which goes against the very spirit of what social impact investing is trying to achieve, right? And then so we really need to make sure that impact investment truly reach those who need them most, and then also support diverse voices and innovative approaches, right? And this is, for me, I think this is very important. The other thing that I see, which you know, like I invite anyone listening to this to really think about this really hard, is that sometimes like every one of us is there's a risk of falling into tunnel vision by focusing on too narrowly on certain issues, right? So, and I'll give you example without understanding, you know, potential negative consequences on other aspects, you know, of society. So, you know, the best example, of course, is there's so much climate-focused investment. And that I think it's crucial to invest and address climate change. But if we only look at carbon reduction targets without considering broader context, we might overlook, you know, human rights violations associated with the renewable energy projects. You know, I've been watching recently some documentary on cobalt mining, and it's like it's mined in some absolutely horrific conditions with child labor, you know, so all sorts of like, you know, negative societal consequences on entire populations. And it's used everywhere, like it's used in electric cars, it's used in our screens, it's used in all the things that we are, you know, like that may be creating a positive impact on at some level, but look at all this negative impact that is also being created. So how do we ensure, you know, like that we keep in mind some sort of like a holistic approach that integrates social, environmental, you know, and other governance and factors to ensure that we don't solve one problem at the expense of creating other problems. And also related to human rights violation, I think, you know, we have a rise in like wars and conflicts now in the world. And this recently has kept me really thinking a lot about, you know, the role of the social impact sector in really actively trying to think about their investment and make sure that they do not contribute to you know, gross human rights violations in multiple areas, whether in, you know, Palestine or other, you know, for example, areas where mining, for example, can affect the rights of indigenous people around the world, or we see so many difficult, you know, situations where you know, investment can unintentionally perpetuate a cycle of violence and human rights, you know, human suffering. And I think this is a conversation that is not happening at the scale that is needed in the social impact sector. And I invite everyone to really think about this. It's not easy, and sometimes it gets political, but I think at the end of the day, if we truly believe in the societal impact, we really need to think about, okay, so we want to measure our impact in certain areas. We're passionate about climate, about nature, about this, but really be mindful that we do not actually exacerbate other issues indirectly or unintentionally.
Perfect. I was so involved in what you're saying, and I appreciate so much that you're talking about greenwashing and BlackRock and those things, because in the beginning it looks so nice. I mean, you know, they're really, you know, looking into climate change and, you know, for the better and things that we can do to help humanity and to lighten the planet. But then when we really pull the rug, we see that there are some things that need to be highlighted and that are not being, the accountability is not there. Like you're talking about
Absolutely.
the child labor and those things like that. Like, what about that? Yes, we want to have uh, 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 cars like these electric vehicles, but what did it take to get these batteries for the electric vehicle? You know what I mean? Things that, like you said, on our cell phone screens, laptop screens, and those things, those are minerals that were, you know, used for, you know, by children and slave labor and not paying what they're worth and also destroying the planet, you know. So there's so much hidden with that as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think it's really crucial for us to remain vigilant and committed, right, to a
Yeah,
deeper,
yeah,
more inclusive understanding of what social
yeah,
impact really means, right?
that's
We
right.
need to keep pushing for transparency, accountability, but
Yeah,
also like equitable distribution of benefits, right? I mean,
right.
like with traditional funds doing impact is great, but there's there are like compensation structures. There are all things in the investment chain that are
Mm-hmm.
such that, at every step, inequalities can become even bigger, right? And so
Right.
at the end of the day, who's benefiting, who has access to capital, who is, at what cost, right? Like, because
At what cost?
what
Yes.
cost do you have access to capital? These are all, important consideration that we may or may not really like be aware of all these intricacies in the process, because
Mm-hmm.
investment
Mm-hmm.
is quite complex, and there are so many. Again, it's not just like me investing in a fund and the fund investing in a company. There are sometimes multiple intermediaries in the process, and multiple you know, steps that we do not understand all the consequences, right? And
Mm-hmm. That's
um,
right.
yeah, and a lot of companies, talking about their impact, and they're kind of like, at the high corporate level, but they're also complicit in many human rights violations around the world. And and I mentioned conflicts in the recent years, whether in Ukraine or in Palestine or others. I mean, like, look at all the suffering that is happening. It's just like incredible. I think it's affecting so many people. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're asking yourself, like, how can some companies that are enabling what is happening, whether in the defense sector or in others, can even claim to be sustainable and working for a better planet? It's like such a contradiction, right? And
Absolutely.
all the
Absolutely.
resources going there, like what goodies are these resources, like all this money that is being channeled to these conflicts? Can you
Yeah,
imagine what that can do to people and even
that's
the
right.
planet, right?
I'm telling you. Yeah. So what is the ultimate goal and what does success look like to you?
This is a tough question. um, I think my ultimate goal is to be part of a transformation in the financial sector. I mean, we talk about transformation in the financial sector. We talk about how sustainable finance should become only finance, right? That everybody does things more sustainable, where everyone like I think I'm hopeful that we will get there one day. So my ultimate goal is to be part of this transformation, even contribute a little bit through education, research, community engagement, to be able to see a shift where social and environmental impacts become a fundamental consideration in every financial decision, not just, something we think about as an afterthought, right? And so in that sense, my goal is to kind of like help in shifting the way we think about finance. And so it's not just about, how do we maximize our returns, which is how I was educated, right? I did all my studies in undergrad and master's and doctoral degree in finance. And that's typically maximization of return is the ultimate goal, right, of any financial decision. So I'm hoping that we be able to help in shifting around me, like the people I interact with, the organization I interact with, the students that I kind of like cross path with, who are leaders of tomorrow at every level. They may be working in an organization, in the investment world, to be agents of change, and driving also meaningful change on their side. So success for me would mean also like seeing impact investing become a norm. I'm really passionate about how do we invest not only again, for financial returns, but we're really seeing the impact of our money working on the ground, changing lives, improving our planet. And yeah, maybe this is kind of cliche, everybody says that, but for me, like, really, like, this would be seeing this happen and become the norm rather than an exception, with sustainable and ethical practices integrated throughout the entire financial ecosystem, is my ultimate goal. And if I can contribute to that a little bit, that would be fantastic, of course. And for my colleague and I, who are working through the Impact Investing Hub, success would mean like we see some tangible impact of our work in the community. So I talked earlier also about the research project around our ASET initiative. I think that's a fantastic initiative. So if we are able to help some communities kind of like quickly transition to a more sustainable energy system without, like at an equitable cost, without supporting their social outcomes, and creating value for them, while also learning how to do this ourselves. It would be great.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, Basma, this has been such a powerful, very deep thinking interview, really puts things into perspective, looking on both sides of the fence, not just one side, and really taking, a broad look at all of the things that we are actually trying to do, as social impact, whether you're an investor or just a contributor, you know, all the steps that need to be taken ethically, morally, and keeping in mind about the next generation, because that's what I always bring up, that we're just team players, we're planting seeds. It's really about the next generation, leaving what we can behind positively and effectively, putting thoughts into action that can benefit the next generation and the next generation after that, so we can see the change that we were, because I figure that we do a lot of talking, we have these Zooms, we do a lot of meetings, but we're also trying to have an outcome to this and have results. But again, the torch will be passed because we're just a part of the puzzle, right? So
Exactly. Yeah,
as
we're only one piece in a big puzzle.
that's it. So my last question to you is, any calls to action or any closing thoughts at this time?
Hmm. Absolutely, yes. I believe that everyone has the potential to make an impact, right? So no matter how small it may seem, so change doesn't always, have to be like from let's say, let's keep it in the finance and investment world, right? It doesn't always have to be like, big investment or large scale project that have a big impact. It can start with everyday decisions, right? Like, for example, we as individuals, how do we choose to support our local businesses? How are we mindful where we invest our money, no matter how small it is, right? That our money is not really contributing to these other, unknown negative, consequences, like the ones we discussed earlier, or just starting a conversation, with people around you, right? And kind of like pushing them to think a little bit more about how they spend their money, how they invest their money, right? Like, how do we all contribute in small ways to build a better society? I think each small action, adds up. And when enough people commit to making thoughtful choices, it can drive the kind of transformation that we need. So I would say, my call to action is very simple. Let's not underestimate the power of, small actions. And I think every one of us, whether you are an investor, a student, just someone trying to live more sustainably, there's always something you can do to contribute to a better future. So the impact we make together, can add up. And again, as I mentioned, even small conversations can make a difference in other people's lives. So I encourage everyone to think about money in a way that, you also think about the impact of your actions.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. On behalf of SETI again, we really appreciate all that you do. We wish you much success in the now and in the future. And this won't be our last. I'm sure we will be collaborating at some point. So
Thank
Victor
you.
will reach out to you, yes, in due time. So we
Thank you
thank you
so
and
much.
we will, oh, you're welcome. We will close the way we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Basma, thanks again, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for all the work you do at SETSI as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, all the
All right.
best.